Chers auditeurs,
dear listeners,
bonjour.
Welcome in Comdarchipodcast Season 4.
Saison 4, dans le monde fascinant des architectes.
And in the architectural projects.
Je suis Anne-Charlotte Deponte, passionnée d'architecture et docteur des universités en histoire de l'archi.
I am one of the spokespersons of Anne-Charlotte, who is a PhD in architecture history.
Merci.
Thank you.
D'être avec moi aujourd'hui.
To be with us today.
Et
And
maintenant,
now,
lundi en français, place au talent.
And Wednesday, let's talk projects. In English, of course.
Bienvenue dans Comme d'Archi.
Dear listeners, hello and welcome to our summer series in Season 4 of Comme d'Archi. This is Esther for Anne-Charlotte. Today we're going to talk about the poetic Château de Ventadour, based on a summary I had the opportunity to write. Ventadour, from the Occitan Ventadour, windy, is an 11th century fortified castle on a rocky spur in Corrèze in the commune of Moustier-Ventadour. Not to be confused with the Château de Mérès in Ardèche, known as Château de Ventadour in the 19th century. Our castle was the seat of the Viscounts of Ventadour and of the singing troubadours, then of the fearsome Geoffroy Tête-Noire, who sacked the region during the 100 Years' War. Probably restored and enlarged in several campaigns between the 13th and 15th centuries, only a few 11th century features remain. To the north, a large 13th century Romanesque circular tower, traces of the Saint-Georges Chapel, and a mid-15th century seigneurial dwelling. A section of wall to the south could be the ruin of a square main tower dating from 1455, built on the remains of a barlong tower with flat buttresses common in the Limousin region. This buttressed tower would have constituted the first element of the fortress, between the mid-11th and mid-12th centuries. The decorative elements found in the rubble suggest that it was very luxurious. Built on a confluence spur, the Château de Ventadour towered 200 meters above the Soudayette and Vigne gorges and 572 meters above sea level. Protected by an enclosure 170 meters long and 30 meters wide at most, Aigle Ier, Vicomte de Ventadour, commanded the Viscounty of Ventadour and the towns of Ussel and Egletons. The unflanked ramparts were defended only by the machicolated sentry walk. Access was via an unusual structure known as a souricière, a mousetrap. This was a long, vaulted passageway built diagonally across the rectangular courtyard and controlled from the courtyard by gun ports. Although surrounded by walls with machicolations, the castle was taken by treachery during the 100 Years' War. In 1379, it became the haunt of Geoffroy Tête-Noire and his bandits. When not in the pay of the English, they ransacked and pillaged the region on their own account, sheltered by the Ventadour ramparts. In 1388, troops under the command of the Duc de Berry surrounded the castle and wounded Geoffroy with a crossbow bolt. He died of gangrene. The castle was finally retaken by the French after a 2-year siege. 200 years later, in 1599, the wars of religion ravaged the Limousin region. Ventadour, the citadel of the governors, held out. During the French Revolution, the castle was looted and sold to a blacksmith. It was largely demolished under the Restoration. However, the removal of building stones had already begun in 1800. In 1829, Madame d'Ambert de la Mazière bought the romantic ruins for bucolic afternoons. Only vestiges remained when archaeological excavations began in 1965. While Ventadour's strategic location might suggest an earlier occupation, research seems to prove otherwise. I quote from a 2005 report by Bernard Poustemy, Sylvie Campec, Laurent D'Agostino, and Christian Rémy. The natural shape of the spur A narrow rocky ridge was hardly conducive to the installation of a large-scale fortification, and only considerable backfilling work allowed for the construction of buildings and, above all, terraces that were probably cultivated. Only the southeastern end of the spur seems to have housed a building, the architectural features of which do not predate the 16th century. On the other hand, surveys and monitoring of earthworks in the area of the square tower and the southeast postern of the central courtyard have revealed the highly ostentatious nature of the late medieval fortification in this zone. End of quote. Although the excavations have not yet revealed the grave of the famous brigand Geoffroy Tête-Noire, they have uncovered the foundations of the seigneurial dwelling. We know that the main hall was 11 meters long and over 7 meters wide. The plan also shows other rooms and 2 stair towers. In addition to fine carvings, including a 15th century keystone bearing the Ventadour coat of arms, the elements found testify to the richness of the decoration in these rooms. The circular Romanesque tower housed a very high vaulted room, poetically called cul de basse-fosse. Pardon my French, this was the name given, in French, to the underground dungeons. Above this room was a vaulted chamber, and above this, the tower ended with the summit platform. Its architecture is typical of late 13th century Limousin towers. As we see, the Château de Ventadour is not only the product of an era, but more than that of a territory. Its very construction has left a lasting mark on the landscape. The lime used to join the granite setting altered the acidic nature of the soil, allowing certain plants that thrive in neutral chalky soils to take root. Barberry, Daphne laurel, and long lichen are perhaps the last living traces of the workers and builders of the time. Ventadour's defensive structures, as much as its living spaces, bear witness to the art of building and living in late medieval Limousin. For that matter, art also played a key role. Eble I's descendant, Eble II, was nicknamed Le Cantador, the singer. He founded a poetic school in Ventadour. For over a century, between the 12th and 13th centuries, the castle was one of the most important centers of Occitan artistic creation, the birthplace of the troubadour Bernard de Ventadour and courtly love La Fenamore. The troubadour, from the Occitan troubadour, finder, was a master of the poetic art, composing melodies to accompany his text. The art of the finder was sung poetry in the Occitan language of Lemozena, reflecting the preoccupations of feudal times, war, religion, morality. With Fenamore, women and the expression of amorous feelings are at the heart of poetic discourse. But certain female troubadours, the Troberits, also left their mark on the history of the castle, notably Marie de Ventadour, wife of Eble V. Bernard de Ventadour, for his part, left one of the greatest legacies with some 40 poems, 20 of which are accompanied by music. Here's an excerpt from one of them, translated into French and now English. I never cared for the season nor the month, nor the time when flowers appear or hide, nor to the budding grass by the spring. But no matter at what time came, of love a rich joy, it was to me such a beautiful beginning that I think I dominate this time. Dear listeners, thank you for tuning in. Let's meet again next week for another summer episode of Comdarchi, a new architectural journey to the heart of a fantastical castle where refinement, Orientalism, and the eclectic vogue of the Second Empire reigned. Until then, take care. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. Thanks to Julien Rebours, sound engineer, who is collaborating with us today. Don't forget to tune in to our previews on Instagram at comdarchipodcast. If you enjoy this podcast, don't hesitate to promote it by giving it 5 stars and a little comment on Apple Podcast or on your favorite podcast platform. And above all, subscribe to listen to all of our episodes for free. See you soon, and until then, take care of yourself.